Hello, I'm Luke, and welcome to another episode of the Vision to Victory podcast, where we discuss practical ways to turn your dreams into reality. Over the last several weeks, we've been discussing finding freedom. Freedom in all the areas of our life where we tend to stay stuck as a prisoner to old habits, old ways of thinking, prisoner to our past, mistakes, things that have been done to us. We can get stuck in a way of life that is not serving us. And of course, we don't want that. We don't want to walk around living in a way that we're just carrying baggage around and weighed down by old things that we're still carrying that we don't have to carry anymore. And today I want to talk specifically about the freedom to heal. We've talked about the freedom to hope. We've talked about the freedom to pursue. And today I want to talk about the freedom to heal. This is a big topic because I believe that often we have unresolved pain or open wounds, if you will, and instead of healing, we compensate in one way or another. And compensations could look like unhealthy thinking, unhealthy behavior, and these compensations accumulate over time. And so, over years of life, you can end up as a version of yourself that you were never meant to be, doing things you were never meant to do, simply because maybe you haven't healed. And sometimes we don't even know that we need healing in certain areas, but we still feel the impact of, again, pain or open wound, if you will. And so it's so important that we heal, that we heal from whatever we go through. The fact is that all of us will experience pain and loss, but it doesn't have to weigh us down as we continue to move forward through life. Rather, it can be an opportunity for new growth and new freedom. So how do we heal? Well, I don't claim to be an expert on the subject, but I've done a lot of reading, I've done a lot of listening, and I've got some of my own life experiences to bring to bear. And I do believe there are a few key components when it comes to healing. And it's worth mentioning that healing is an inside job, meaning it's an individual thing. Not that we do it in isolation, because we do not, but nobody can do it for you. People can do it with you, but not for you. In the same way that if you had an injury, a doctor could help you heal, but it's your body that has to heal, not the doctors. And so we need people to help us. And so we need people to do healing with often, but again, nobody can do it for you. So there's three key components when it comes to healing. And I just want to unpack these a bit. First, forgiveness, love, and connection. Forgiveness, love, and connection. These are the three components of healing. Forgiveness can be a weighty topic, and I think there's a lot of misconceptions about it. And it's not my intention to unpack forgiveness in its entirety today, but I do want to give kind of a summary of it, certainly what it's not, and then how it applies to healing. Not forgiving leads to resentment, which leads to bitterness, anger, depression. And I heard this saying one time, and it stuck with me, that resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. While that's kind of an unpleasant and vivid illustration, I think it's true. I think that's actually true of unforgiveness specifically. If a person wrongs or hurts someone, then that person is in some way in debt to the person who was wronged or hurt. The problem is that unlike money, there's no way to actually repay a hurt or betrayal of another person. It's impossible to quantify emotional, physical, psychological pain or hurt. It's impossible. I got a personal story to illustrate how something seemingly small or trivial can be traumatic or impactful. When I was 12 years old, I was heading into 7th grade and I was going to be attending a new school, and as a kid, I played outside a lot and was very allergic to poison ivy. And unfortunately for me, on what was to be my first day of 7th grade at the new school, I had a particularly terrible case of poison ivy covering my face. Now, I was already nervous about going to a new school, and I don't know if you have many memories of when you were 12. I do not, but I definitely have this one. But I was nervous about going to this new school and had to meet a bunch of new people, and I had to go now looking like Frankenstein, is what I felt. To say the first week of school was a bit traumatic would be a huge understatement. Even though most of the kids weren't overtly mean, I could, of course, tell that everyone was acting weird when they were talking to me. Some people just didn't want to talk to me at all. And one kid who later became my friend innocently told me that everyone thought that I had a disease when they first met me. And even though I didn't necessarily realize it at the time, that would stick with me. So fast forward a few years and I'm in high school and I start to have acne. You know, nothing crazy, just the typical teenage stuff. But I had internalized that 7th grade experience more than I could have possibly realized at the time. And anytime I would have the slightest breakout, I would do anything and everything to make it go away or be less obvious. And with this feeling of like terror and anxiety and taking me back to that first day of 7th grade. And it's kind of hard to explain, because it's really was an internal thing. Most people who know me, you know, I generally have a fairly calm demeanor, but that's not always indicative of what's going on inside of me. And I just remember, you know, all throughout high school and, you know, on into my 20s as well, just that feeling of anxiety, of insecurity, and people are looking at me different, even if that wasn't the case at all. I still felt that way. And, you know, well, I'm a bit more mature now than I was then. But if I'm honest, I still have to fight not to be overly preoccupied with insecurities or perfectionism. And my point in sharing this story is to illustrate how impossible it is to quantify pain or trauma. You know, if I were to say to you, hey, when I was in 7th grade, I was upset that I had to go to school with poison ivy, it doesn't sound very dramatic. It doesn't sound like a big deal. And maybe on the surface, it's not. But the way that I experienced it and the domino effect of that over the subsequent years was very traumatic. And it impacted multiple areas of my life socially. And again, it's impossible to quantify that. There's no way. So, you know, step out of that example for a second and just think of anything. It's impossible to, you know, quantify, or going back to the debt analogy, to repay a debt that keeps on accruing, if you will. If you hurt somebody, or I hurt somebody, or somebody hurts us, it's impossible for that person to truly make amends. Now, there are definitely actions that can be taken, and that's not to say that, you know, trust can't be rebuilt in a relationship or something like that. But the reality is that can only happen on the other side of forgiveness, because forgiveness is what cancels the debt, that unrepayable debt. In order to move forward in relationship with someone, you can't have this huge lingering debt. That's like having $1 billion debt, and an apology, no matter how sincere, is $100 payment toward your $1 billion debt. Unless the debt is forgiven, then any other kind of, you know, nice thing or gesture or anything will just go towards that huge amount of debt instead of being like a net positive on the ledger. I hope that makes sense. But if the debt is forgiven, if the hurt is let go of by the one who was wronged, then there can be an opportunity to move forward. Now, there's a whole nother, you know, bit on what forgiveness is not. It's not necessarily trust, although it can lead to that. It doesn't make everything okay. It doesn't make the wrong that was done okay. It's just letting go. It's not drinking the poison anymore, not letting it have power over you. Again, I could unpack forgiveness on a deeper level, and perhaps I will in another episode, but suffice it to say that it is 100% a requirement for true healing. If you are struggling to forgive someone or forgive yourself, I've dealt with some of that in my own life, talk to someone, find help. Don't keep drinking the poison. Okay, so we got forgiveness and we got love. Now, love, I don't mean this in any kind of fluffy way. Love is a very powerful thing. Both giving and receiving love changes us and can lead to healing. Experiencing loving kindness, particularly if it's unwarranted, can disarm, it can soften people. This is another thing I've experienced in my life. Also, choosing to give love can have this effect as well. Having children really introduced me to something that I had not experienced, a level of love that I had not experienced. Now, I love my wife. I love my parents. I love my siblings. I love my family, all of it. But having kids hits different. When you have kids, you understand this. There is no length I would not go to protect or rescue my kids from danger. There's nothing I would not do. And it continues to change me, grow me, soften me. And you can choose to love other, even if, even outside of kids. Maybe your kids are grown, maybe you don't have kids. Choosing to love others in many ways can also have similar effects, such as volunteering through, acts of generosity. Can also heal and open up parts of us that maybe have been closed off. In fact, I would say if you are feeling maybe underwhelmed with life, is kind of down, looking for meaning, looking for purpose, I would start by finding a way to help others, to help and love others in a meaningful way. Something that's, they don't have anything to offer you necessarily, but you're just doing it because it's something you want to be a part of your life. I highly recommend this. I got some personal examples about this that maybe I'll share another time, but just getting outside of ourselves can have such a healing, therapeutic effect on us. So we got forgiveness, we got love, and the third thing is connection. Connection to something greater than ourselves. Being connected with people who care about you and who you also care about is a catalyst for healing. As I mentioned earlier, while healing is an inside job, no one can do it for you, it's not done in isolation. We often need help to work through our experiences and our hurts with people who care. Also, being connected with nature is a therapeutic in a way that you have to experience to understand. And I hope most people have experienced some version of this. But for me, being in the mountains, crisp air, smell of the aspen trees, sound of a running river does something in my spirit that only nature can do. Much like, the breathtaking view of the ocean, feet in the sand, light sea breeze. It just does something in your spirit. And the value of that cannot be overstated. And there's a reason why we've got these little cliches that we throw around all the time. Go get some fresh air, take a walk. Sunlight is good for you, not only physically, but physiologically. We are so wired to be connected, not only with people and community, but with the world around us. And nature is a huge part of that. So we got forgiveness, love, connection, the freedom to heal. If you feel like you're carrying around baggage from your past, whatever it is, feel weighed down by life, I encourage you to do the deep work of forgiveness. Find ways to give and receive love and foster connection. Foster connection with people, foster connection with nature. And lastly, this is a big one. Bonus. I believe that not only is healing possible, but that it is made accessible by the creator of the mountains and the oceans, the creator of love and connection. And if he made those things, and if he made you and he made me, then connecting with him is a great place to start the healing process. I hope this was helpful. If it was, share it with somebody. I hope you have a great day.